Welcome to today's Chromebooks for Education webinar. We'll have Jamie Cassip and Ben Fauner from the Chromebooks for Education team presenting today. So I'd like to first kick it off with Jamie Cassip, who will be doing the presentation and give a quick introduction to the agenda and what we'll be covering.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on what part of the country you're in, and just wanted to say happy Friday. Just going to do a quick overview of what Chromebooks mean in education, what we see as the future of using technology in the classroom, and then I'm going to get into a little bit more detail around what these devices can actually do in the classroom. And then we're going to go through a couple of Q&A questions and answers that we've already seen from doing previous webinars and talking to folks in education. And then we'll have some time at the end there to answer any questions that come up in our chat box. So if you have questions, make sure that you ask questions in the chat box, and we'll try to get to them at the end of the presentation.
Actually, a quick housekeeping note, Jamie. If you do have questions throughout the webinar, you could ask them in that Q&A box. It's slightly different. It's got a white box with a question mark inside it. That way everyone can see the question and the answer. We're recording this webinar, and we'll be able to send you a link to the video recording, the slide presentation, as well as the question and answer transcript. So any questions that you ask in that Q&A box, we'll be saving and publishing later for you to review later. So again, if you have questions throughout the webinar, we'll try and answer them throughout the presentation, but we'll also have time at the end dedicated for Q&A.
Perfect. Thanks, Tina. So let's start. First slide here. So, you know, we see technology in lots of different ways, and one of the ways that I always like to remember technology is that it wasn't that long ago we used to be able to keep all the web pages in one bookmark. I remember back a long time ago in the 90s where a website would come and everyone would know about it. There were 20, 30, web pages out there. And when we were talking about web pages, they were basically links to other pages that had links to other pages. And so the web used to be this massive place where information was stored, but it was really text-based. It was text-heavy, and it was a great place to get information, but it didn't have a rich dynamic interface. And as most of us know, that's the web that we're dealing with today. It is completely different. Next slide. In just a few years, there's been an explosion of internet and web usage. In usage in lots of different ways. It wasn't that long ago that we were able to use the web to communicate. Now we use the web to interact with users, with each other, to communicate, to collaborate. You can see from the slide here in stats that we have here. In just 60 seconds, there's almost 700,000 searches and queries that happen on Google, or that every second, every minute we spend 168 million emails. So in every time that you think about how we use the internet today, it was that long ago that we weren't using the internet in this way. I remember, and I'm sure many of you do, back in the good old days when we used to have to take our computers and plug them into a wall and use the internet way. Those days are long gone with high-speed internet, rich content on the internet. We're using the internet in a completely different than we were just using it 10 years ago. Next slide. Today on the internet, on the web, you can do things like hang out with friends via video chat. You can watch TV, you can watch HBO, you can watch cable television, you watch movies and video clips on YouTube, other sites. You can even edit video on the web, and that's relatively new. The idea of being able to take a video, start it on the web, and then be able to clip, segment that video and edit that video, it's just mind-blowing to me that we've been able to progress the web to that point. And more importantly, we've been able to use the web to communicate, collaborate with each other. And we work on projects together no matter where we are. No matter what situation that we're in, no matter what time zone we're in, we can work together and collaborate on projects the same time. So it's acted as that kind of central point of communication and collaboration for us. Next slide. And candidly, you could say education hasn't been able to keep up with this technology. The reason is because it's moved so fast. In just the last 10 years, here's an example of these websites that have popped up on the net and that we use on an everyday basis without even thinking about it. It's almost daily that we use Google or YouTube or Twitter or Facebook or Yelp. These are sites that have just become part of our everyday lives, and it hasn't taken that long for that to happen. So part of the reason why this hasn't been able to keep up, education hasn't been able to keep up with this pace of innovation is the cycle of time that it takes to go through an evaluation period of a new technology, or go through the evaluation period of to integrate a new technology into the education model. And so we gap between new innovations, new technology, and being able to implement them in education. Next slide. The classroom as being where the teacher stood in front of the students, and she would, perform. She would stand up on her feet all day and put information into our heads, and we would sit there passively and listen to this information. And I have a 10-year-old, and I've sat through his classes, and for the most part, same experience. So he's going through the same experience that I went through 20 years or however long ago I was in 5th grade. He is going through the same exact experience, and yet our technology is different, right? So if you compare a classroom, I went to school with Yellow Pages, and to be honest with you, I remember getting the Yellow Pages and actually looking forward to a new copy of the Yellow Pages because there were new phone numbers in there. So how we search today, we would never even think about looking through Yellow Pages for searching for information about someone. Next slide. My 10-year-old that's going into the classroom, technology isn't new for this generation. They use technology on a day-to-day basis in everything that they do. Most certainly, it isn't new to them. They recognize operating systems, recognize whether you're using a PC, a Mac, a tablet, a mobile device, a laptop, a netbook. They recognize that they're using this technology to access something. And 99% of the time, what they're accessing is the web. And using web tools, web apps, they're using things like Khan Academy, and they're using things like YouTube and Netflix and Wikipedia to access information. And to go directly, if you ever watch, my 10-year-old or most 10-year-olds, they open up a computer and they're not opening up a word processing document. What they're doing is they immediately go to the web and they immediately go to the sites that they're used to using on a day-to-day basis. So we find that maybe, we've watched this evolution of the web, most of us have watched this evolution of the web over the last 10 years. So this generation, the web is not new. They're born into this technology, and they use it on a day-to-day basis. And so when you show up to a classroom and they're using this technology and they're not using the web, I'm sure they're wondering why. Next slide. The things that we have to make sure that we're worried about with this generation is that if we separate the use of web and technology, if we integrate the use of technology and the web into the classroom, I'm afraid, and there's some studies that show, that the students are using the web to consume. They're using the web to consume videos. They're using the web to consume content, but they're not creating. And for us, when we started with the internet, and why the internet took off was because it was a great place to be able to create, to communicate with each other, create material together. And so we make sure that students are using the web, that they're using technology to not only consume information, because there's definitely a critical component of that, but also make sure that they're creating on the internet and that they're creating on the web and that they're learning how to do this in an educational environment. Next. And they're starting to see many, many ways where schools are adopting this type of philosophy, where they're using web-based tools, Google Apps for Education, to do things like creating collaborative lesson plans between teachers. No longer does the teacher have to write a lesson plan on their own and hope that they can now write lesson plans, collaborate with teachers around the world, and come up with the best ideas for the best lesson plans that they can put together. They're using things like Google Forms and Google Sheets and charts to create great science projects where kids can actually input data and see that data on scale and actually be able to interact with that data. They're using it for things like flashcards, using it for things like student e-portfolios, where a student going to a K through 12 is using a Google site to create an e-portfolio that has all the information that they've ever created, videos that they've been able to create, links to documents that they read, links to the websites that they interact with, and keeping everything in one place that they can access from any device. Using the web and using tools, Google Apps, to do things like create assessments, using Google Forms to create easy pre- and post-assessments so teachers get instant feedback from how students see it and how students are doing with the information that they're trying to give to their students. So lots of different ways that teachers are they're using the web and using web applications like Google Apps for Education, do that creation to make sure that students are communicating and collaborating these web-based tools. Next slide. So this technology, we're going to see the use of this technology across many, many school districts. Using, we know Google, so we can talk about Google Apps for Education, and maybe some of you on this webinar use Google Apps for Education, but we're going to see that we're using these tools not only to be efficient and more effective, because definitely some value internally inside of the school system. There's a cost savings issue, there's a technology issue, but there's also a how do I make my life better issue, and there's definitely some incredible ways that teachers are using these tools to do that. But important, they're using these tools to help students build skills around communication, collaboration, problem solving, team building, risk-taking, all the skills, all the critical skills that we say kids need in the 21st century. And they're learning how to do all these things, and they're learning these skills by using the technology that we know they're going to be using in college and in their careers. Next slide. Able to do, as I mentioned earlier, is move from the model where the teacher has to stand in front of a whiteboard or a smartboard and perform to students, a model where the teacher actually is a facilitator or a conductor, where the teacher can be individualized by either individual or by group, and to be specific and more student-driven, so that students can actually use technology as part of their learning environment. Next slide. Reasons why we haven't seen the technology in education, besides the speed of innovation and besides the evaluation period and all this, is the reasons that we have outlined here. Budget. It costs money to put technology in education. There's definitely a cost associated to it. And so we want to make sure that you're getting a good return on investment. So more importantly than using budget to buy devices or hardware or software, we want to make sure that you're actually getting good use of that technology. That's not sitting in laptop card software, or that they're sitting in the back of a room not being used. We want to make sure that you're getting good return on investment. All on that. Also, scalability. We all know that it's difficult to put 10 machines into a room to teach adults to do something with technology. We understand putting 30 machines in the classroom to teach 50 can be time-consuming and difficult sometimes. So if you try to scale that 30 machines in the classroom to 300 machines in the classroom to 3,000 machines in the school district or 3,000 machines in the school district, it becomes really, really impossible to do, and we recognize that with the Chromebook. And so things that Ben will talk about is one of the key components of the Chromebook, the managed features that you get with the Chromebook. And so management of these machines. And still seeing, technology coming into the classroom. So, school districts buying thousands of tablet devices, or school districts buying thousands of netbooks. And I wonder, how are they going to manage these devices? How are they going to do the operating system upgrade? How are they going to do the software upgrade? How are they going to manage what applications these students put on these devices, especially as we scale? So now over to Ben, who's going to go a little bit more into the detail of what these Chromebooks do. So I've kind of talked up these Chromebooks and talked a little bit about what we think they can do. And he's going to go through some of the detail of what these Chromebooks can actually do for us in the classroom.
Thank you very much, Jamie. And it's a great overview about kind of why I'm excited about the potential for bringing the web into the classroom, and in particular with Chromebooks as kind of a portal to the web, and we see as really the best, most efficient, and most effective portal out there available today. So what I'm going to do over the next probably 15 to 20 minutes is talking a little bit about the benefits of the Chromebook. So, we ended by talking about some of the barriers that that schools face, and why that kind of ideal scenario of having technology available and in every classroom is particularly difficult to achieve right now. So I'm going to start by talking about the benefits of the Chromebook and how they address some of those major challenges, and kind of why we're excited more on a broad level. And then following that, I'd like to dive into some of the features about the product specifically. So, Chromebooks for education are really kind of three distinct product areas. You have the actual Chromebooks, the hardware, and the operating system, and then you have the management console, which is the ability for an administrator to make all the Chromebooks from one central point on the web. And then the following aspect is the warranty, service, and support that comes from Google directly. So, this is kind of pick up the phone level support. You have any problem with the hardware, if it breaks for manufacturing reason or anything like that, you ship it back, and before we even get it back, there's another computer on the way. So those are kind of the three major benefits of purchasing the Chromebook for education package from Google. I'll go into each of those, and then I'll finish up by giving a little bit of a view into the actual product, so what it looks like to be using a Chromebook, what it looks like to be using the management console, and then I'll finish up by addressing some of the top questions that we have and that we've heard about Chromebooks. So again, kind of starting with the benefits, diving into the features of the product a little bit, and then finishing up by trying to address some of the questions that people have. As Dana mentioned, we'll have time at the end of the presentation to address any additional questions too. So I'm going to go back for one second, actually, and let's think about those three challenges that Jamie talked about, the challenges of scalability, budget, and management, and use that to frame the benefits of the Chromebooks as we talk through them. So, introducing the Chromebook. This is a brand new computer from Google. It's built optimized for the web, and it's really designed to bring users the best of today's internet and all the rich content that's out there and available. So the first thing is that Chromebooks just work. They're designed for the internet. The internet works extremely well. You open the lid, you're on in 8 seconds. There's not a lot that gets in the way. It's extremely efficient. It's an interface that people are used to using. It's kind of a no-brainer, non-complex product that's great for students, great for teachers, great for administrators. The second piece is that Chromebooks are extremely easy to manage. So as opposed to other computers where you think about setting up and imaging each individual computer and really worrying about the antivirus software that's on each individual computer and updates on each individual computer. Chromebooks can be thought of more as a fleet of computers, and they manage as a fleet of computers as well. So it really kind of provides a lot of management benefits in that sense. The third area is easy to support. So kind of going along with that ease of management, a lot of support that needs to go on. Chromebooks are designed really to take care of themselves. So you put them out in a classroom, they're good to go. They're going to continue getting the latest and greatest version of the operating system, the latest and greatest version of any apps that you have that you're using, and it just kind of happens behind the scenes without any IT involvement or really a lot of thought and effort that has to go into that. And then the final piece, which is addressing the challenge of scalability, is that Chromebooks are just between the pricing model, which is much more designed around the service model rather than purchasing a big piece of hardware. So in addition to the budget component, it's just the ability to support many more computers than would normally be possible in other types of systems, where you're spending a lot of time and effort on yearly maintenance, things like that. So addressing budget, addressing scalability, we think Chromebooks provide a lot of benefits there. So let's talk a little bit more about what Chromebooks will do in the classroom and why these are great devices for students and for teachers to use. Think about using a computer right now, and in classrooms that I was in, computers is kind of like a special treat, right? It was something where you took a class period, everyone would go to the computer lab. It was a full period event where you were there. It took 5 minutes to get started. You would work on an assignment, and then you were done at the end of the day. So Chromebooks actually get started in about 8 seconds. And the beauty of this is it really allows Chromebooks to be used kind of at point to point in different points of a lesson rather than for a particular block of time. So it's a whole way of being able to integrate and use computers into lessons day to day. The second major benefit is that computers will last all day without charging. So there's two devices, a Samsung and an Acer. Both will last kind of an entire school day. The Samsung lasts 8.5 hours on a single battery charge, and that's 8.5 hours of continuous usage. So this is more than enough time to get through the day, and you don't have to really worry about plugging in midway or kind of cycling through computers as certain ones run out of juice and you need to bring in other ones for students to use. The third is that kind of think about a device that's built and optimized for the web, and the fact that the web really allows the same experience everywhere. Chromebooks kind of follow that model as well. So just by logging in, a user will have a very personal experience on a Chromebook. It's not going to be like a typical computer where you have files that are saved on the desktop and you have to make sure that you're using the same computer that you were using before so that files are all there and ready to go. Chromebooks, you log in and it's your computer. It doesn't matter whether it's the same computer you were using yesterday. Everything's there and waiting and ready to go. And the third final classroom benefit kind of goes along with that as well, and that Chromebooks are easy to share or not to share if an administrator prefers not to let Chromebooks be shared. So, as I mentioned, just by logging in, it's a very personal experience, but administrators can also configure kind of who's able to use particular Chromebooks. So an administrator can say, I only want people from my school domain to be able to log into these Chromebooks and control it at that level, which kind of addresses some theft concerns if schools are implementing one-to-one programs and things like that. So now let's turn from kind of the classroom benefits to more of the administration and IT benefits. And again, this is an area that we're particularly excited about because we feel like Chromebooks are able to, because of the model that Google followed in building the Chromebooks, because of the way that the actual hardware works, Chromebook was something kind of on the management side of things that was very difficult and expensive, if not impossible to do in the past. So the first thing is this web-based management console. I'll walk through that a little bit more later, but basically this means that instead of worrying about configuring, setting up, and imaging individual computers, administrators can do all of this from one central point on the web. And by logging into the management console, they can push out specific applications to different groups of users. They can configure proxy settings. They can configure who can and can't log on, that you can blacklist certain apps that you don't want students to be using in the classroom. So there's a lot of flexibility that you can do from the web and from one point centrally and have it applied to all of the Chromebooks that you're managing as part of the fleet. And that's a great benefit. We see schools, particularly if they're thinking about larger deployments, from 100 to 1,000 or even more. This is a great benefit for IT folks at those schools right now. Third area is that security is built in. So the computers are built from the ground up. The kind of to provide protection to the user, to the network, and to the actual computer. So there's kind of layers of protection, and Chromebooks are designed based around a principle called defense in depth, which basically means that if you think about the malware threats that are out there on the web, Chromebooks really provide multiple layers of protection around or against those threats. And the first being that everything that happens on a Chromebook runs in the tab of a browser, and each of those tabs are isolated both from each other and from the underlying operating system. So that means that anything that happens in a tab, whether it's a piece of malware or instability or anything like that happens in one tab, it doesn't affect anything else that's running, and it doesn't affect the underlying operating system. So that's a great benefit. There's no need for antivirus software. It kind of just works from a security standpoint. The second piece is around what happens with data that's stored on the device. So as we mentioned, Chromebooks are designed really to keep most of the data and most of just about everything on the cloud and in the web, and much more. Just that model in general is much safer because nothing's stored on the local device. It's not vulnerable to theft. It's not vulnerable to somebody else kind of breaking in and being able to access that data. So most data is stored off on the cloud. As we start to think about applications like offline Gmail or apps that work regardless of whether you have an internet connection, it becomes necessary to store a small amount of data on the actual computer in the cache. And on a Chromebook, all of that data is kind of hardware encrypted, so it's very secure. The small amount of data that is stored is kept very safe from anybody who's trying to access it. And then the final piece on the security front is a principle called verified boot. And this basically means that every time a Chromebook starts up, it checks the operating system that it's running and makes sure that nothing has been tampered with or corrupted in any way. And if something has happened, it will access the known version that was available before and really keep itself protected and fresh and ready to go. And that kind of leads into the final benefit that I want to talk about from a management standpoint, the idea of forever fresh. So without any administrator ever having to really think about it, Chromebooks stay up to date. They continue to run the latest and greatest version of the operating system. As opposed to multi-year refresh cycles, other operating systems kind of are accustomed to. New Chrome versions come out about every 6 weeks. So, that's kind of a 6-week release cycle for the browser. It's a 6-week release cycle for the operating system. So these systems are constantly evolving, constantly getting better and better over time. And instead of an individual Chromebook kind of becoming slowly obsolete, they become better and better. And they kind of grow along with the technology as it advances kind of on Google's side of things. We talked a little bit about the benefits for teachers and students and then for administrators, and now I want to talk a little bit about the hardware features that Chromebooks have. And briefly, kind of in the context of the benefits, but I just want to go through these relatively quickly to give an idea of some of the main features that we think that are important. So the first principle that has been built into the actual hardware from the ground up is the idea of speed. We don't want people waiting to get what they need to do done. So Chromebooks are fast to start up and fast to resume. You open it up from a cold boot and it's online and ready to go in about 8 seconds. That time is decreasing over time as well. So, that's going to get faster. 8 seconds between a student and the web is pretty good right now, and it'll be even more exciting as that time drops in the future. Second aspect is the idea of connectivity. So Chromebooks are fast to connect and are really optimized to get people to what they need to do as fast as possible and regardless of where they are. So Chromebooks have the option for built-in 3G, and that includes 100 megabytes per month for 2 years of free data from Verizon Wireless. Also, has the flexibility of really being able to work on any network that's out there. So you put in a SIM card and you can use any network or any plan that you already have set up with your school. And the final area is that the hardware is actually designed to be super fast as well. So if you take a close look at a Chromebook, you'll notice that the keyboard has some unique keys that are part of it that kind of make it even faster for people to get around the web. So the search key, you put that, it's in place of the caps lock key. You press it and you're automatically in a new tab and ready to search. The cursor's right there and ready to go. And so this is kind of just the small things that we feel like kind of eliminate those unnecessary pieces of old computers and bring in things that make computing even better. better for users. So this area, and I talked a lot about this already, so I don't want to go into too much depth, the idea of security and the fact that security is really built in from the ground up, both in terms of the defense in depth principles that we talked about, but also in terms of really belonging to a particular user rather than a particular computer. So, with Chromebooks, as I mentioned earlier, you log in and it's your personal experience by logging in rather than dependent on what machine you're using. The same is true with your data. So you log in and your data's there. Nobody else's data there. Is there somebody who's logging into a machine after you log in doesn't have access to your data? So there's kind of subtle security issues around a cloud-based model as well. I talked a little bit about the hardware. Now I want to talk about the management console and what it's possible to do with that. And this is an area where we see tremendous improvement happening over time as well. So we're, Google's really investing in continuing to build out the management console. And the beauty is that, over time as those advancements take place, and anybody who has a Chromebook kind of access to those advancements as well. The three areas that are kind of most important and most interesting for schools in the management console right now is the ability to manage and set up proxy settings from the cloud, the ability to control who can and can't log into a Chromebook, and then finally the ability to allow block or pre-install different apps and extensions that users can find out there through the Chrome Web Store. So kind of instead of going into each of these in depth, I'm going to try to switch over so that I can actually show you what the management console looks like. It's going to be a live account, so I hope it works, but let's see what we can do. The management console actually lives in Google Apps control panel. So if you're familiar with using Google Apps for your domain, then you'll be kind of familiar with what this looks like right now with the different things that you can control and things like that. So to access the Chromebook settings, what you do is really just click on the Settings tab up here. See all the different products that are part of this particular managed domain. So for me, this is a Chrome domain, but for a school, this would be their own personal domain. By clicking on Chrome OS, now I can see all the settings here and all the features that are part of the management console. So you mentioned the ability to control who can and can't log into the management console. That's just allow guest mode or restrict the sign-in to a list of users. So I can say I only want users that are part of this domain being able to log in. I talked about proxy settings as well. So the ability to kind of set which proxy server URL students are using to access the internet, to make any filtering that's in place already even more effective so that the proxy configurations don't live on a computer, they live somewhere else where students can't access them and they're kept really safe and secure. We see some of these other settings around browser features, security settings, browser options, which tab page opens. And then final area that I just want to show a little bit more in depth is this extension section. So this is where an administrator can control which apps and extensions can be installed onto the particular group of Chromebooks that are out there. And you notice right now it looks like there's kind of some weird text going on in there. And the way that it works is you actually find the apps that you want to either push or block in the Chrome Web Store and copy that section of the URL into this this management feature right here, and that's the mechanism for how people can control which apps and extensions are there. So it looks like gibberish, but it's actually the code that's associated with each of those apps or extensions. Then you can finally see some of the content control features that are in there and the Omnibox features as well. So I'm going to switch back to the presentation. I can address any additional questions that people have about the management console, but hopefully that gives folks a feel for what's possible and what the console looks like. So the final kind of product area that I want to talk about is the service, warranty, and support component that comes from Google. And we get a lot of questions about whether this covers accidental damage or intentional damage from students, and it's really at this point not intended to cover those things. So it's kind of white glove service, white glove support, white glove warranty from Google, but it's not an insurance plan. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everybody up front before we kind of dive into to what each of those components look like. So in terms of direct support, Chromebook Chromebook for Education offering kind of is associated with this 3-year agreement with Google, and during those 3 years, schools get 24/7 phone and email support for urgent inquiries. And that's where, if anything happens, if anything's not working, you call us up and we'll take care of it. We'll either ship out a new computer or resolve any issue that's being had at the school. The second thing is the warranty that I mentioned. So this is not an insurance plan, but it is an extended 3-year warranty that is covered through Google rather than through the manufacturer. It covers any hardware defects and manufacturing defects, things like that, kind of like a typical warranty, but it lasts for longer, and it's something where you just deal with Google directly rather than having to contact, Samsung in Korea or anything like that. Final aspect is the payment options, and that we didn't like so much about the current availability out there right now was that a lot of times purchasing computers entails a huge upfront amount of money to purchase computers. We recognize that schools are kind of set up to make these purchases that way right now, and so there still is the option to pay for Chromebooks all up front. But we also wanted to enable more of a cloud-like model where schools can pay over time and pay $20 a month per device rather than having to pay several $100,000 up front for that full device. So this kind of makes it more of a service that schools have and that schools integrate rather than a huge capital expenditure. Final area around service and those sorts of benefits is around Wi-Fi and 3G options. So as I mentioned, Chromebooks come with an optional 3G card built in, and by purchasing those Chromebooks, it comes with 100 megabytes per month of mobile data. So it's actually $2 more per month. And that extra $2 is not intended to be like a wireless plan. It's intended to cover the extra hardware that's needed to provide the 3G capability. So the 100 megabytes per month is really an additional benefit from Verizon. It's not really intended to be all the data that we want to provide you for that amount. If you're using Chromebooks heavily, then more data is going to be required to really do what you need to get done over 3G. But most schools mostly Wi-Fi, so we feel that that Wi-Fi will be the primary mechanism for how they're being used in the school environment as well. But if it's not the case, then it's very flexible and easy to buy additional data. So talked about the benefits. I went through some of the features, and now I kind of want to show you what it looks like to use a Chromebook, what just how simple it is, and what a user experience is like from logging in and getting started. So I'm going to fly through these pretty quick. The idea is that if you're familiar with the Chrome browser, you're going to be pretty familiar with the Chromebook. It looks by and large the same. There's a few subtle differences. With having a computer that's running an OS rather than a browser that's running in another computer. But we'll just kind of show you what it is. The idea with Chromebooks is that you start up, 8 seconds, log in, you open a tab, and you're ready to go, and you're on the web. And everything you need is in that new tab page, all the apps that you have installed, but you can access anything else out there on the web, and even do video chat built in, so there's no need to install extensions or plugins or anything like that. You can just chat from the very beginning. So that's pretty cool. So let's start by talking about the login screen. When you log in, you can sign in with Dell or GA Plus credentials, and multiple users can share a single Chromebook, as I mentioned earlier. There's also the option to use guest mode and browse incognito, and that ability can be disabled by an administrator as well if they prefer to have everybody with the unique login logging in. Let's talk about the new tab page. So all the apps that you see right there are actually apps that are available through the Chrome Web Store and kind of are installed with basically one click. So either an administrator can push those apps out to individual Chromebooks without people even having to go to the Chrome Web Store, or a user can visit the Chrome Web Store and get the apps themselves. You'll also notice the Omni box. That's a feature of the Chrome browser that's pretty cool. It's basically a box that lets you either type a URL, conduct a search, or jump directly to a bookmark, kind of just by typing in the same place. So that's kind of cool too. Now the Chrome Web Store. So I mentioned the Chrome Web Store. Everyone should feel free to visit the Chrome Web Store and poke around a little bit. It's pretty cool. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that as well and what it looks like right now. So I'm kind of coming to a close before we jump into the top questions. I just wanted to show a quick slide on the different models of Chromebooks that are available right now. So we have both the Samsung Chromebook and the Acer Chromebook. There's some very subtle differences around weight, around battery life, life, and probably the big one is biggest two are screen size and which monitor or projector output is available. But in general, Chromebooks are designed to work as a Chromebook and work very fast and do everything that you need to do. So under the hood and the different chip speeds and things like that, we feel are really as important as the different hardware characteristics and the screen size and all those things based around user preferences, rather than being able to assess whether a particular computer will be fast enough, powerful enough for somebody to use. Because we want that to just be a baseline requirement of every Chromebook going out the door. Let's finish by talking about some of the top questions that we get asked about Chromebook. And the first is whether I can buy Chromebooks for my school through Amazon. And it is possible to buy, you'll notice if you go to Amazon.com, you can buy Chromebooks directly from there. So Amazon's great. It's great for picking up one or two Chromebooks. The problem is that if you're thinking about larger deployments, you don't have access to the management console through with Chromebooks purchased through Amazon. And that's something where even afterward, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to get those Chromebooks that are purchased separately onto the management console from Google. So kind of once Chromebooks are purchased from Amazon, they can't be part of a managed fleet of Chromebooks from Google. The second question that we get asked a lot is around 3G and whether it requires a monthly plan. So I mentioned Chromebooks include 100 megabytes per month for 2 years of data. That's a benefit provided by Verizon, but there's a lot of flexibility around 3G. Verizon's provided some great plans that let people purchase data in individual increments rather than having to sign on to a long-term contract, which we're really excited about because, when we think about folks like traveling or even students who might need a certain amount of data for a particular period of time but don't want to sign a long-term contract, it makes it very easy to purchase a month's worth of data or a few gigs or something like that as you need it, rather than to have to spend a lot of money to sign up for something that's ongoing. I mentioned earlier, though, you can put in an AT&T SIM card and the Chromebooks will work just fine on any existing plan that you already have. The next question, which I think we already addressed, is the fact that the service and support from Google is meant as warranty service and support, not necessarily an insurance plan. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everybody as well. The next question is around printing. So Chromebooks are different because everything's based in the cloud, and we also want to have a printing experience that's based in the cloud that will basically allow you to print anywhere to any device that's been enrolled in SAP as a Google Cloud print printer. This requires a little additional work kind of on the front end to get a printer, an existing printer that you have set up to be cloud print ready, but it's relatively easy. It's a matter of associating a printer with a particular desktop computer that's running Chrome, and it's kind of a few minute process provided you have all the resources there available. After that, it makes it very, very simple to print from any Chromebook to that particular printer. There's also an option to buy cloud print ready printers, so it's kind of a much more open box experience for people who need to print. Next question is around subscription pricing, and as I mentioned earlier, Chromebooks must be purchased for 3 years, and after those 3 years, you actually get to keep the set of Chromebooks that you're using and get a new set of Chromebooks, a brand new version, with the continuation of the subscription. So you keep the old ones, you get new ones, and you can use them in a library or however different schools want to use them. It is possible, given that budgets still tend to come in cycles rather than that more $20 per month model, it's still possible to pay for the full year subscription up front for schools that prefer the more capital expenditure model there. So now I want to turn it back over to Jamie, who will kind of close things out, and then we can jump into a few minutes of Q&A. If you don't have a chance to address your questions now, we'll be addressing them in text form and then sending them around to everybody. So Jamie, go for it.
Thanks, Ben. That was a great overview and all the features. I actually took a couple of notes and things I just learned from listening to you. I just want to close out by talking a little bit about an article that came out on Sunday, and I'm sure many of you read the Sunday New York Times article about technology and education, and whether or not technology is improving test scores and the backlash that caused in so many different ways. With what technology and education should be about improving scores. And in some degree, absolutely, it should be about that. But this letter we have highlighted here highlights why we want to bring technology into education. Students are in a world that where technology is all around them and using it on a day-to-day basis. Even with that being true, there are still many, many students who have access to technology, aren't building the skills that they need for the future, and school will be the only place where they can actually get those skills. And so one of the pilot schools that we sent Chromebooks to, superintendent sent us this letter, and these were students that were not used to using technology. Technology was all around them, and they used it at libraries, and some of them probably used it at home. Meaning they didn't interact with technology on a day-to-day basis, or some like students or like my 10-year-old didn't have a device, a personal device that they owned. And one of the things that the superintendent noticed and the teachers noticed was that as soon as these students had access to these devices, they were doing things immediately without a lot of direction. They were immediately collaborating. They were immediately communicating with each other. They just jumped in and started vetting information that the teacher was talking about. They just jumped in and started sharing information with each other and using that technology to help each other write better. They were using it to do everything from vetting information that was talking about, confirming information that they were talking about. But the cool thing was that they were critically thinking about information. They were critically thinking about the data that they were facing. So I want to say that as important it is to improve test scores, it is important to engage our students. It's just as important to build skills that these children are going to need going into their college careers and into their future careers, whether college or not. That technology will be part of their lives in one way or the other, and they need to learn how to integrate with it so that they can learn how to communicate, collaborate, problem solve on the internet. So we want to get into some of the questions. Ben, you're on the line as well. Are there any specific questions that you've been able to point out here that we can address?
That have come up here that, Ben, you might be able to answer. So how can you control what appears on the new tab? Which apps and links, et cetera, appear when students open a new tab?
That can all, there's kind of different options there. So the way that Chromebooks are set up by default is to allow students to really make those configuration choices, and students can apply different Chrome themes that they want to apply to that they want to have applied to that page. Students can put the different apps on that page that they want to have installed. You recognize that schools may not want to have this level of flexibility for students, and that's where the management console comes in. The management console can either prevent students from putting particular apps onto that new tab page, or it can also select a group of apps in advance that an administrator or a teacher feels like should be part of that new tab page. So that level of control either rests with the students or with the administrator through the management console, depending on how it's set up. It's kind of as a side note, the Chrome themes that are out there, it's kind of probably the easiest example to go through, but we found when talking to schools, when talking to students, that the ability to kind of make those subtle customizations and have it really feel like a personal computer, even if it was a computer that was being shared with 4 other periods of students throughout the day, being able to log in and feel like either my school theme is there or my own individual theme was there, really fostered a big sense of ownership over the computers. That was kind of a cool small touch that came as part of being able to work with that new tab page.
Another question here about availability outside of the U.S. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Sure. So right now, Chromebooks for Education are available in I think 6 European countries, and those include the UK, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and the Netherlands. That's where they are available right now. We're trying to make them available to additional countries as quickly as we possibly can. There is some, it's a matter of producing completely new hardware, so it is a bit of a challenge to get those computers out the door, but it's something that's a big priority for us. We have had a lot of interest outside the U.S., and we want to make sure that they're available for people to get outside the U.S. as well.
I want to there's a question that I don't think we talked a little bit about. I want to make sure we're clear on is what happens at the end of the 3 years, with these devices. And so, Ben had something here as well, but what you're paying for 3 years are the devices with the managed features and warranty and the support. At the end of those 3 years, you keep the machines. The machine is yours, but they become just web-based machines. They're no longer part of the managed console. So you can do many different things. And I've talked to a lot of schools that are thinking about what they want to do with these machines at the end of 3 years. Some of them want to give them to the students to take with them. Some want to set them up in community centers or give them to other classes. There's lots of different things that you can do with these devices. But in the 3 years, these devices are yours to keep. You sign a new contract, and then you get a new set of devices as well. So make sure that everyone was clear on that.
Yep.
And kind of following up on that, we did have a question about the upfront cost for the full 3 years. So you can absolutely pay for your Chromebooks for the 3-year $20 a month fee all upfront. So that would be $720 for the upfront fee, and that would be Wi-Fi only. So if you're going to, it is possible to buy the devices either as the Wi-Fi only model, or you can also purchase them with the 3G model. So that question comes up.
Adding to that, Dana, the question I saw in there was, can I get Wi-Fi models and then upgrade them to 3G models if I see that need? And obviously, apparently you can't. Unfortunately, you can't because the 3G models come with a little bit different hardware than the Wi-Fi models do, and you can't post-add those that hardware into the Wi-Fi models. But just in terms of strategy, so that those folks on the line can think about this, what I've seen schools do is that they're making X number of machines as Wi-Fi machines, and then X number of machines as Wi-Fi machines, so that they have both, that they can use some for whatever purposes they have. And there's lots of different reasons as to why you want just Wi-Fi models versus the Wi-Fi 3G models. But there's definitely opportunity to mix both machines into what you're buying, not necessarily just buy one time.
And we have a couple questions about the 3-year and the 3G plan. So somebody asked if even if you don't renew your contract after the 3 years, do you still get to keep the devices? And so absolutely, yes, you've paid for those devices. After the 3-year period, they're yours. Whether or not you sign another contract, those devices that you purchased are yours. A question about if you get the 3G version, can you subscribe to a data plan for just 1 or 2 Chromebooks, or do you have to get them all added? So Ben, maybe you can take that one.
Yes. It kind of can be, the 3G aspect is very flexible. So if 3G Chromebooks, you automatically kind of just for free get that 100 megabytes per month for 2 years. Additional plans, it's completely flexible how you want, which Chromebooks you want those to apply to. So I can say have, as 100 Chromebooks total, 10 of them are 3G units, and I want 2 of them to be on this particular data plan. I want 2 of them to have no data plan, and I want the last 6 of them to really be much more flexible and purchase data as I go. And that's totally optional. All the 3G aspect is managed on a device-by-device basis rather than as a whole overall. There's another question there about an additional setup fee to the $20 per device per month. There's no additional charges that are associated with the Chromebook, so it's $20 per month. It includes help getting set up. So service warranty and support happens from the moment you sign your contract. So if you need help getting set up, it's included in that $20 per month. And then it's basically $20 per month for 3 years, and that's all the costs that are associated with the different Chromebooks.
Hey, can you talk a little bit about plugins, Java? That question seems to come up in terms of how that works on Chromebooks and what our response is, what our point of view is to those types of things.
So a lot of questions about plugins, and particularly around apps that schools use that may not with Chrome browser right now or on a Chromebook right now. So I'm going to take a step back and talk a little bit about the vision for a second. So Google's invested a lot of time, and indeed all companies have invested a lot of time, whether it's Microsoft or whether it's Apple or whether it's Mozilla, in really making the web a very open platform and making tools that work in the web really work across all browsers. And that's the direction that we see things going. So we see HTML5 as really the future of how apps are going to be built, how websites are going to be viewed. It's a much more rich experience, and the beauty of that is it requires very few extensions, or it requires very few plugins and anything that's kind of installed on your computer. So everything happens in the browser rather than requiring access to your computer. There are a lot of benefits to this. A few of them are just that anything you access then works across any browser that you're using. So you can use IE9 and have the same tools available as you would on Chrome or would on Firefox. So that's the direction that we see things going. There's a lot of benefits around security as well of not having things being installed on your computer. There is still, we aren't there yet. There are a lot of tools that are out there that require Java, that require Silverlight, that require things that require Flash. So what the Chrome team has done is we've actually built some of those plugins in natively, and things like Flash, for instance, will work on a Chromebook because the plugin, it's been structured in a way that you don't need plugins to run Flash on a Chromebook. It'll just work in the browser. So things like Java aren't quite there yet. Java is particularly difficult because it introduces a lot of security vulnerabilities, and kind of with security as one of the core tenets of a Chromebook, it's difficult to kind of reconcile those vulnerabilities with the desire to keep the system rock solid from a security standpoint. It's something that we're really working on, but there are issues that don't work quite yet.
Emily, we are over time right now, and I know that there are still a few more questions on here. So Ben, Jamie, and I will make sure that we answer these questions in the Q&A transcript that we'll be sending out. So again, you'll receive links to this recorded webinar, the slide presentation, and the Q&A transcript, so everything that's been, all the questions that have been popping up throughout the webinar that we've been answering. So you'll receive links to that early next week. Thank you for joining us all today, and we hope that you were able to learn something more about Chromebooks for Education.